Fantasy football isn't won by memorizing rankings. It's won by understanding opportunity. And opportunity starts with the environment. Before you learn rankings, learn the environment. This is the fantasy football ecosystem. Know the environment. Draft better.
We are now inside the fantasy football ecosystem. I'm JW. Before you learn rankings, learn the environment. The NFC North is a good example of why that really matters. You can know every player in this division and still get the draft decision wrong if you do not know what role you're actually buying. Sometimes price already assumes a breakout. Sometimes the offense is good, but the opportunity is spread across too many players. And sometimes two players are sitting next to each other in a draft, but they can carry completely different kinds of risk. That is what we will sort out today. The ecosystem will assume a normal 12-team, one-quarterback redraft league. The rankings provide the forecast. The ecosystem gives us the framework for using it. I will simplify the NFC North to where I can draft with confidence, where I need a price check, and where I am comfortable waiting. So let's build that ecosystem. Chicago is the crowded breakout offense. DJ Moore is gone, so more opportunities available around Caleb Williams. The problem is deciding how much of it goes to Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, Rome Odunze in the backfield. Detroit is the easiest offense in the division to trust. Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown are established. The bigger questions are Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, and what changes under Drew Petzing. Green Bay is the concentration problem. Josh Jacobs has the cleanest role, but Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, and Jaden Reed and Golden can all matter without one of them dominating the passing game. Minnesota has a clearer quarterback answer now with Kyler Murray. That improves the environment, but it does not settle the backfield or the target order behind Justin Jefferson. There are 4 good offenses, but 4 different ways to get the price wrong. Chicago is becoming a Ben Johnson offense in more than just the name. The Bears already had a productive rushing structure with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. Caleb Williams adds rushing value on top of that. The biggest change for Chicago in 2026 is where the targets go. With DJ Moore gone, it leaves more opportunity for Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, and Colston Loveland. All 3 are being drafted as if more work is coming, which is probably the right answer. The difficult part is deciding who gets the biggest share. The environment core is Caleb Williams. Ben Johnson remains the offensive play caller, with Press Taylor now the coordinator. I'm not expecting Chicago to abandon the run just because Moore's targets are available. The real question is how Johnson redistributes those targets without taking away what already worked. Caleb Williams is drafted with a price check. Caleb already gives you a rushing floor, but at his current price, I'm also paying for him to step up as a passer. I could make that bet. The weapons or play callers are good, but in a one-quarterback league, I do not need to force it. If the room pushes Caleb above the rest of the quarterback group, I am comfortable letting someone else pay for the jump. Colston Loveland is drafted with a price check. Loveland's late season breakout pushed him near the top of the tight end market. Moore leaving creates a clean path to more targets. The problem is I am no longer buying the breakout before it happens. I'm paying for it to continue while Odunze and Burden also need to get some work. I like the role, I just want some room in the price. If I want to pay for a potential weekly advantage at tight end, Loveland has that ceiling. If I like the running backs and receivers available around him better, I'm comfortable on waiting. Luther Burden III is drafted with a price check. Burden has the opportunity, but not a settled place in the target order. Moore is gone. Ben Johnson has been positive about him, and a bigger role is coming. He is also dealing with a groin injury that is expected to keep him out of the preseason. The injury matters because this target hierarchy is still being formed. Every missed rep is one less chance to separate before week 1. And at his current price, I'm buying the chance Burden becomes a primary target earner, but I don't want to pay as if he has already done that. Rome Odunze is drafted with a price check. Odunze goes later, which helps. The foot currently looking healthy. The bigger question is whether Chicago distributes Moore's vacated targets more evenly than the market expects. If that happens, Odunze can beat the price. What I am not doing is drafting Loveland, Burden, and Odunze as if all 3 can become the clear number 1. Odunze is a cheaper way to bet that the market may be too certain about Burden or Loveland. DeAndre Swift is drafted with a price check. He remains the lead piece of a good rushing environment. The issue is Monangai, especially around the goal line. I still like Swift as a running back too. I just want the price to reflect that. Some of the most valuable carries may be shared. I'm not worried about Swift disappearing. I'm worried about paying for a cleaner touchdown role than he actually has. And then Carl Monungai is considered late. He has standalone work and real contingent value if Swift misses time. That is enough once the core of my roster is built. Draft lens. The opportunity is high because this should be a productive offense, and Moore's departure creates receiving volume. Concentration is on the lower side because the backfield is shared and the targets can move among 3 young pass catchers. The risk is medium because several prices require us to project the next step before the hierarchy is settled. The upside is high if Caleb takes another step up as a passer. Your memory hook for the draft is Chicago has enough opportunity. The hard part is deciding who actually owns it. Detroit is still a high-end fantasy environment, but the structure has changed. Montgomery is in Houston and Detroit added Isaiah Pacheco, but Gibbs is still the lead back. Drew Petzing is the new coordinator and play caller. I still trust the to score. The question is how the touches and targets get divided after Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Gibbs and Amon-Ra are also the environment core. They are the 2 players I expect Detroit to keep feeding regardless of what changes around them. Petzing is a new variable. In Arizona, his offense used tight ends heavily, and Trey McBride became a major part of the passing game. That makes Sam Laporta's role especially interesting now that he is healthy again. Jahmyr Gibbs is of course drafted with confidence. With Montgomery gone, and Gibbs already being elite, and Pacheco just being a compliment, there is nothing here that makes me want to manufacture a reason to fade him. Amon-Ra St. Brown is drafted with confidence. The role is established and the targets are established. The offense still gives them very high scoring opportunities. Jameson Williams is drafted with a price check. This is the Detroit decision I care about. Williams became more valuable when his route tree and target profile expanded late last season. Now Laporta is back and Petzing is calling plays. What I'm paying for is that expanded version of Jameson Williamson to become permanent. If Petzing keeps giving him intermediate, easier targets, he can beat the price. If he moves back toward lower volume, vertical work, while Laporta takes targets back, it gets a lot harder. So I'm not worried about whether Williams catches one long touchdown during the preseason. I want to see if Detroit still uses him like a complete receiver. If that role holds, I'm comfortable paying for him. If not, I want him much later. Sam Laporta is drafted with a price check. Laporta is fully participating after last year's back surgery, and Petzing's history with the tight end position makes the fit very interesting. The price has also come down from previous years. That is what makes me interested again. I do not need Laporta to recreate his rookie touchdown production. I need him healthy with enough target stability to beat the middle of that tight end market. The uncertainty is how much Williams keeps from the expanded role and how much more work Gibbs gets in the passing game. At the lower price, I'm more comfortable accepting it. Isaiah Pacheco would be considered late. He's dealing with a sprained MCL, but Detroit expects him back for week 1. Even if he's healthy, I'm drafting him as Gibbs' complement with contingent value, not as a Montgomery-esque position of old. Isaiah Tesla is waiver watch. He's worth knowing as Detroit's current 3rd receiver, but I don't need to draft him. Jared Goff could be considered late. He's a reasonable quarterback bet if I wait at the position. The environment is strong. The lack of rushing just means he usually needs volume and touchdowns to give me a real advantage. For Detroit, the opportunity is very high. Concentration is high at the top with Gibbs and Amon-Ra, but less certain after them. The risk is medium, Petzing is new, and the offensive line is becoming more unsettled. Starting center Cade May suffered a wrist injury that will cost him some significant time. The upside is still very high because Gibbs can absorb more work without Detroit needing a major offensive improvement. Your memory hook for the draft is trust the stars, price the role changes behind them. Green Bay is where I separate a good NFL offense from clean fantasy volume. Matt LaFleur still calls the offense, Jordan Love is the quarterback. Josh Jacobs is the backfield anchor, Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks are gone. Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden are the current top 3, with Tucker Kraft at tight end. That creates available targets. It does not mean Green Bay has to concentrate them. The environment core is Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love. Jacobs gives us the cleanest fantasy role because the rushing and red zone work can stay stable even when the targets move around. Love distributes the ball and the floor does not need one receiver getting massive volume for the offense to work. That is the problem with the Packers pass catchers. Josh Jacobs is drafted with confidence. Jacobs is dealing with a groin issue. He's expected to miss at least a week, but is still not viewed as a long-term issue. If it holds, I'm comfortable with the role. Monitor the groin, but do not turn a short-term August injury into a reason to erase an established role. Christian Watson is drafted with a price check. Watson has the efficiency and has been prominent in camp. The question is volume. At his current price, I need enough weekly opportunity that I'm not living on a couple of deep targets and a touchdown. Dobbs and Wicks leaving helps, but does not tell us whether those targets go mostly to Watson or get split among Reed, Golden, and Kraft. If Watson becomes the closest thing Green Bay has to a primary receiver, the upside is real. If the distribution stays broad, the floor stays volatile. So if I already have stability on my roster, I'm more comfortable paying for Watson's ceiling. If I need weekly target volume from that pick, I would rather wait. Tucker Kraft is drafted with a price check. Kraft may have the widest gap between ceiling and certainty on this team. Before the injury, he was producing like a difference-making tight end. He is back at practice, which is encouraging, but being back at practice does not mean he is automatically ready for a full early season workload. At his current price, I'm paying for the pre-injury version to come back quickly. If he is playing full snaps by the end of August, I am much more comfortable. If Green Bay is still managing him, I want the price to reflect it. And even if he is healthy, he still has to share targets with Watson, Reed, and Golden. That is why Kraft stays at price check. Jaden Reed would be considered late. Jaden Reed is where the price solves some of the uncertainty. I do not need him to lead Green Bay in targets. I need enough designed usage and explosive plays to make the pick worthwhile. Matthew Golden is considered late. Golden is another cheaper bet on the available targets. I am not drafting him as if he has already passed the other receivers. I'm drafting him to see if the role grows. Marshawn Lloyd is considered late. He continues getting first-team work while Jacob deals with the groin injury. If Jacobs is healthy, Lloyd is hard to trust weekly. If Jacobs misses time, the path could change quickly. Jordan Love is considered late. Love is another quarterback I'm comfortable with if I wait. He can be efficient, but Green Bay doesn't need him slinging the ball every week, so he won't carry your fantasy team. So I'm comfortable taking him later. I just do not see a reason to chase him ahead of the other quarterbacks in that draft range. Opportunity is high. The offense can create yards and touchdowns, and the receiver departures will open up some work. The concentration is low, Jacobs is clear, but the passing game can be divided several ways. Risk is medium to high because Kraft is returning from an ACL, Jacobs is currently sidelined with a groin issue, and the offensive line has changed. The upside is high because one pass catcher separated from the group would immediately create value. Your memory hook going in the draft is Green Bay can score plenty without telling you who gets fed first. Minnesota is now a Kevin O'Connell offense with Kyler Murray at quarterback. O'Connell named Murray the starter over J.J. McCarthy. That matters because the biggest problem for this fantasy ecosystem last season was getting functional quarterback play around Justin Jefferson. Murray does not automatically fix everything. He is learning a new offense and has his own durability questions, but the quarterback role is definitely settled. The environment core is Jefferson. With Murray now responsible for making the passing game function, O'Connell remains the play caller. Behind Jefferson, Minnesota has Jordan Addison, Jawan Jennings, and TJ Hawkinson. The backfield is also shared between Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. That is where most of the draft decisions are. Justin Jefferson is drafted with confidence. The target share never disappeared. The environment around him was the problem. Murray does not need to be peak Kyler for Jefferson to improve. He just needs to give O'Connell and Jefferson more functional quarterback play. I am comfortable drafting Jefferson where the market puts him. Aaron Jones is drafted with a price check. Jones and Mason are one of the better examples of why the ecosystem matters. Jones is still the better bet for receiving work, but this is a real committee. What I'm buying with Jones is passing game value and enough work to give me a useful weekly floor. I'm not buying a 20-touch lead back. If I want more stability, Jones is a cleaner version of the backfield. The mistake would be drafting him because I still picture the old workhorse version of Aaron Jones. That is not the role I'm paying for. Jordan Mason is drafted with a price check. Mason is going in a similar part of the draft, but the bet is different. I'm buying the more physical rushing role, touchdown access, and the chance he becomes much more valuable if Jones misses time. What I still don't know is whether he catches enough passes to survive the low touchdown weeks. If I want the safely weaker floor, I prefer Jones. If I want the contingent upside and touchdown leverage, Mason may be a better fit. Same ecosystem, similar price, different reason to draft them. That matters when I'm on the clock. I'm not separating these two based on who I think gets one more carry in week 1. I'm taking the role that fits what my roster needs. Jordan Addison would be considered late. Addison has a thumb injury, but Minnesota does not expect a long absence. At his current price, I am more interested in the quarterback change than worried about a temporary cap absence. The bigger issue is the target competition behind Jefferson. Juwan Jennings is considered late. Jennings gives Minnesota another reliable veteran target that is good for the offense and not as good for target concentration. At a later price, he's a reasonable depth option if the target order shifts. TJ Hawkinson will be considered late. Hawkinson is going late enough that I'm interested. At that cost, he does not have to become the old version. If Murray stabilizes the middle of the field, Hawkinson can beat the price. Kyler Murray is considered late. He is draftable again because we have the answer we needed. He is the starter. In a one quarterback league, I still do not need to reach, but the rushing ability, O'Connell and Jefferson give him enough upside if I wait at quarterback. Damon Claiborne is a waiver watch. He's worth knowing because he has speed and is one development away from a larger role. I do not need to draft him behind Jones and Mason. The opportunity is medium to high because the quarterback change gives the passing game a better chance to recover. Concentration is medium. Jefferson is clear, but the secondary targets and backfield work are spread. Risk is medium to high because Murray is new to the offense and the backfield remains shared. The upside is high. If Murray fits quickly, Jefferson can rebound and several discounted secondary players can become useful. Your memory hook for the draft is the quarterback answer is clearer and the secondary roles are not. So here's how I want to remember the NFC North. Chicago is the crowded breakout ecosystem. There is more opportunity, but Loveland, Burden, and Odunze are all being drafted on some version of the same growth story. I want exposure without paying as if I already know that winner. Detroit is the easiest offense to trust. Gibbs and Amon-Ra are simple. The real decisions are Williams, Laporta, and how the roles behind the stars change under Petzing. Green Bay is the concentration problem. Jacobs is the cleanest role. The pass catchers are price decisions because this offense can work without one player dominating the targets. Minnesota now has the quarterback answer. That helps Jefferson, but Jones versus Mason and the target competition behind Jefferson are still the decisions I care about. And that is really what this division comes down to. There are plenty of players I want from the NFC North. The question is whether I am paying for the role they actually have or the role I'm hoping they get. Chicago makes me pay attention to target distribution. Detroit makes me separate the obvious stars from the changing roles behind them. Green Bay makes me think about how much volume I actually need at the price. And Minnesota gives me similar prices attached to very different types of opportunity. That is the NFC North ecosystem. When the draft gets moving, I am not going to remember every camp report or every depth chart change. I don't need to. What I need to remember is what kind of environment I am drafting. What role am I paying for? And what still has to go right for that player to return value? That gives me something I can actually use when two players are sitting next to each other and the clock is running. And remember, know the environment, draft better.